Hi, my name is Joanna Doliwa and I'm the downside class of 2020 and I'm currently a neuroscience student at the Jagiellonian University in Krakow, Poland, and today I deliver a sixth form lecture on becoming a neuroscientist, what that entails, and also about generally being a university student.
Warm welcome. It's very nice to be back, and especially because just 3 years ago I was in the exact same situation as you are right now, sitting here, dreading to go to yet another sixth form lecture. But I think, and I hope, mine will be interesting at least to some of you, because neuroscience is an interesting topic in general, as can reach many disciplines, which we'll talk about later. So what precisely is neuroscience? So if we dissect the word into two, it's neuro and science. So most of you know what science is. And neuro stands mainly for the nervous system. So the brain, the spinal cord, but actually many more things, like how the individual cells in the brain are connected, how many types of cells are there in the brain, how many cells are in the brain, and how these cells translate into what we feel, what we think, and how the deficits in these cells may cause different diseases, such as, I don't know, Parkinson's disease, and so on and so on. So actually, in order to do neuroscience, you don't have to do the same thing I'm doing, which is study neuroscience. Neuroscience is mostly taught at the faculties of biology across the whole world. But to become a neuroscientist, you don't actually need to study neuroscience. You may just pick and choose projects that relate to this subject while studying, for example, physics or mathematics. It's actually very interesting, because then you can make some very complex models of how the brain works using mathematics. Or you can be a psychologist and just ask a question, all right, why this child is diagnosed on the autism spectrum disorder and this one isn't? Or you might want to become a neurosurgeon and operate on gliomas, and so on and so on. So there are, I want to stress that there are multiple different paths to sort of the same career, but actually within such a niche, which is neuroscience, there are many career options, and in the future I would highly encourage you to explore them. Alright, so as mentioned before, I study neuroscience, but I don't actually study neuroscience. So I do, but it's actually my major within the interdisciplinary mathematical and natural sciences degree at the Jagiellonian University in Krakow, Poland. So after my time at downside, I decided to come back home. And just for a preview, this is my institute where I have most of my classes. Alright, so how did I come from being a student who liked biology, who liked physics, and so on, to someone who knew they wanted to study neuroscience? It actually, most of it happened here at Downside. So what I started with was reading some of the popular science books, which I would highly encourage you to do. There are so many. Yesterday I went to Waterstones, and actually the two most represented sections within the popular science books are quantum physics and neuroscience. So there is a lot to choose from. Yesterday I picked out the second book, if anybody has maybe read it. We may compare our opinions afterwards. But my journey actually started with the book on the left-hand side, which is Musicophilia by Oliver Sacks. Because I was very interested how playing a musical instrument from an early childhood may influence certain cognitive abilities, maybe intelligence, and so on, because I've played the violin since I was 6 years old, and some people would say, oh, yeah, you played the violin, that's why you're so smart. And I was like, well, where is the link? So I started reading about it. So my first piece of advice would be to maybe start with something more popular to get yourself into the topic. My second point is to research your career, or research your degree, or whatever you want to do in the future. This will pay you afterwards. What I did was I did an EPQ entitled Does Taking Instrumental Music Lessons in Early Childhood Influence Motor Skills and Memory, here at Downside when I was in lower sixth. and I cannot recommend this enough. It opens some doors for me, made it easier to apply for universities, and also I got to explore a topic I liked while still getting a credit and recognition for it. And I did this project under the supervision of Mrs. Alcantara, whom you all know, and that brings me to yet another piece of advice. If you can choose a supervisor or a tutor who is equally interested in your subject and is sort of eager to bounce ideas off of each other with you, then will probably greatly influence not only your motivation but just the general workflow. So not only did I do the EPQ, I also decided to present it at a scientific conference. So this was another part of sort of researching what a scientific career might look like, because genuinely scientists go to conferences on a regular basis and they talk about their research, they make posters, they make presentations, and so on and so on. So this is what I wanted to do, so I wanted to try it out. And apart from that, I couldn't unfortunately find pictures from this time, but I also secured a work experience in my local Polish Academy of Sciences. And for a month I sort of shadowed different scientists, and this also gave me a lot of experience and sort of an overview what a day-to-day life of a scientist looks like. So then I was like, yeah, I would be happy with such a lifestyle. Why not do it as a career, as a degree? And so I did. Another piece of advice, there are a lot of them, is to search for multidisciplinary options if you have multiple interests. So I've known since like lower sixth that I might like neuroscience, but I also like science in general, and I also like other things, which I'll talk about later. But what I did is to search not only for neuroscience degrees, but also for natural sciences degrees. And this is exactly what I did. My degree is non-traditional in the sense that each year, apart from the neuroscience modules, I get to pick any modules I like from other science departments. Plus, I get assigned a personal tutor, so one-on-one tutoring every year, and I can actually join the research of the tutor. And then I have to submit like a mini thesis every year. So now I will walk you through what I did in each of my years, because each year I was supervised by a scientist from a different scientific faculty. So this is enigmatically looking. These are actually just cells under a microscope. I recognize that the light might not be the best in here. But basically what I did is I did something upper sixth talk about in their biology class today. I transfected these cells, meaning I provided them with a vector which had genes which coded for mutant G proteins. These are a kind of a signaling proteins. And then I verified using a microscope how the mutation affects how well these G proteins bind to a membrane. So that was year one, it was Faculty of Biotechnology. Next we have year two, it was not the Faculty of Biotechnology but Biology. And I did a literature review on how the SARS-CoV-2 infection might affect the human circadian clock. So it's actually quite a hot topic. Maybe not right now, but a year ago, 2 years ago, it was more. So you know how we have different sleep-wake rhythms, or we crave food at a certain time, and so on and so on. And this is actually controlled by so-called clock genes, which are expressed, proteins that they encode for are produced in a sort of oscillatory manner throughout the day. So I've read more onto how the viral infections sort of influence the expression of these proteins, and also how maintaining a healthy lifestyle may cause us to have a less severe COVID. And now we move on to my bachelor thesis, which I'm doing this year. I'm doing it at the Faculty of Physics, which is, you know, the first faculty I'm at. And it's actually the mathematical modeling of this small subset of a genetic network, the 3 genes at the bottom, which are responsible for the circadian rhythmicity in mammals. and it has so far presented me with many challenges because I haven't done that much programming before, and I am interested in that, but I haven't done the maths necessary for that in 2 years, and so on and so on. So your degree is also a great place to learn new things, even in your final year, even when you're writing your thesis. And there are definitely people to help you with that. That's what universities are for. But as I mentioned before, science is not my only interest, so to say. I also like journalism, probably because my mom is a journalist, so I get that from her. So actually in our first year of studies, when the COVID was still heavily on, remember this, it was 2020, 2021, together with 3 or 4 of my friends, we started a podcast. It is called Neuroscience. It's the first neuroscience podcast entirely in the Polish language. There was nothing like that before. And on the podcast, we interview scientists from Krakow and beyond to talk about brain and the nervous system in a more approachable way. So for example, we did an episode on how the diet affects the nervous system, how important is the sleep, and how music influences the brain once more, or can we find a cure for the Alzheimer's disease, how will we do that? And it's all presented in a very approachable way. For example, with the speaker on the right-hand side, who is one of my professors at university. She told me about the sheep, which had an Alzheimer's disease gene. And basically, if these sheep went to sleep with the rest of their community at regular times, their progression of their disease was slower than for the sheep who went to sleep irregularly due to having this Alzheimer's gene. So that was very interesting. And on the left-hand side, we have a professor from Brazil who actually came to a conference I co-organized last year. And it was a pleasure to meet her because she's an absolute legend in neuroscience. She basically was the first one to count the number of neurons in the brain, making the brain into a soup. How cool. But nobody thought of that before. And it was very good to talk to her because she also had a good sort of scientific communication approach and to talk through her next projects and so on and so on. So this is not only a good form of sharing the science, but also for networking. And if you ever get the chance to do something similar, I would also highly encourage you to do that. I've talked a little bit about the conference, but the conference deserves more recognition because for a year, a group of 20 students, including me, have been preparing, organizing this big event, which is one of the biggest events of the sort in the whole Europe. And it gathers the early career neuroscientists all in one place, all in Krakow. So what we had to do, we had to sort of, organize the accommodation for the speakers, talk to the sponsors, also record some podcast episodes, provide catering, and this was such a huge event, but we managed to do it, and I would say that scientific conferences are great also in that respect, that after these super crazy, super smart keynote lecturers, which are like the top scientists you invite, finish their talks, there is always a space for networking, there is often a conference party, so you might listen about something new in research, and 2 hours later you're at a conference party, casually having a drink with one of the super smart professors, so I think this is also a very nice experience. Next on, we have a topic of traveling. I don't know if you like traveling, but I do. And this is actually possible even without taking a gap year. You can go on an exchange semester like I did, or even a whole year. So for the whole of last semester, I was in Bordeaux in France, where I just casually became a student of neuroscience there and got to learn some new stuff at a slightly higher level, meet some new friends, and also get funding from Erasmus for my stay. I know that Erasmus is discontinued in here, in the UK, but perhaps if you study somewhere else in Europe or find some other study abroad options, which I know there are some, that's a great place to sort of expand your knowledge, expand your experiences, and all within your degree at university. So it doesn't have to be boring, it can be a lot of fun, and I can testify to that. And university is also not the place to abandon your lifelong passions, okay? So this passion for me has been playing the violin, and so I just decided to join an orchestra. And this is my orchestra. We are here in Amsterdam and here somewhere else in Poland, in Krakow. We actually came back from Amsterdam last week from one of our concert tours, which was very nice. And I find it very motivating and very inspiring that I can still, grow my abilities, grow my skills, while enjoying myself, while meeting nice people, while, again, traveling. So if music is one of your passions, definitely search for an orchestra, or if it is a sport, definitely do that at university. This is the place for you to grow. And last but not least, I know this is a Catholic school, so perhaps not all of you are Catholic, but for example I am. And it's also very nice to look for a Catholic society. Here we are with my scholar rehearsing some kind of presentation song, whatever. And here we are again. I've actually found some of my best friends there. So, it's all about time management, but you're super nice, super smart. You can do a lot, and you're definitely capable of that. All right, so I ambushed you with a lot of advice. So here are some takeaways to just sum it all up. So the first one, it is more comfortable and efficient to work with tutors who are supportive and interested in what they are researching and in what you want to research. The second one is try to check out your future career or university course. This is, I think, very important, will save you a lot of trouble in the long run, at least for some people. 3, if you have multiple interests, definitely search for multidisciplinary options. And 4, university is a great place to still explore, still find new interests, extracurricular passions, do something you've never done before, but also continue the things you've already been interested in before. And the final one, don't be afraid to grab new opportunities, such as exchange years or setting up a podcast or whatever it might be that you like. And also networking opportunities, and grab them where you can, basically. So I think that was all. Thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them, whether they are about neuroscience or studying in general.
How did you look for the opportunities?
So I researched what is available in my area, meaning they didn't announce that it is a work experience, but I basically wrote them a long email saying, hi, this is my name, I go to school here, I want to apply to British universities, it's good to have a work experience, plus I really want to see what being a scientist is all about. And I would like to really shadow you. Here are some things I'm interested in, and I've read their papers, for example, so I've said oh, I've seen you published in Nature last month, that's great. I really admire you, and so on and so on. And even though in Poland it's quite unpopular to have such shadowing sessions or work experience things, they were yeah, we see your ambitions, we want to help you out. And the supervisor actually would have one-on-one talks with me and would talk about her experience in science both in Poland, and she also spent some time in the US. So it's sometimes best to just ask. You won't always get a positive reply, but I think it's good to try. Yeah?
Chloe?
You have quite a few extracurricular activities. How did you manage to balance your time between those and your university course?
Well, I've always been the kid who does a lot of stuff because I went to music school while I was in Poland, and obviously at the outside you get assigned a lot of activities. And for example, I don't know, you might be choir or like be in a competitive sports team, go on a lot of matches. So in that sense, you're well prepared because the school prepares you for it. But I don't know, I feel like my best tip wouldn't be even to manage your time well, because that's what everybody says, but to be able to sort of prioritize and know when to let go of certain things. So maybe this week you have an important test, and maybe not the best time to sort of casually pick up running at that point, or just, you know, having a good relationship with whoever your supervisor is and being able to say, hi, I know we had a deadline, but I have a conference this week, can we move it forward? So if you maintain these healthy relationships with people who are above you and also sort of learn to prioritize certain things, I think you should be all right. Yeah, I know there was another question. Yeah.
When you went to France, was it hard? Were the lessons in a different language?
So I deliberately chose the subjects that were in English, and actually they have a whole master's program in English. And remember that I'm still in the undergraduate, so when I took on the master's classes, they were naturally slightly more advanced. But I had the advantage that I studied neuroscience beforehand, and some of these people did not. They just studied biology or engineering. So I had the upper hand at that. What I would say in France is that you have to do a lot of speaking presentations, which I wasn't that much prepared for. But I know what you're getting at, because some people feel like Erasmus is time to party, time to maybe, I don't know, explore the country, and it definitely is. Maybe not always in France. I've heard that in Spain or Portugal it's much less intense for the exchange students.
Any other questions there?
Yeah, I see one here.
Did you ever think of going to go down the musical path rather than science as well?
Well, not that much actually. Actually the most hesitant time for me was right before embarking on my university journey, because suddenly, you know, my A-levels were cancelled. I didn't know what I'm gonna get. And then at the same time, I sort of was passing my music qualification in Poland. It's slightly different than in the UK, but let's say it was like, do you have like diploma level? Yeah, after grade 8, something like that. So to like qualify as a musician, and my teacher was like, oh, maybe you will just try. But then, I don't know, I've always prioritized learning school over violin, so I didn't see the point in changing that. Also, being a musician is just hard, also financially, so I don't know. If I had two options that I both liked, and liked them equally, I just decided to go down the science one. Yeah?
Do you know what you'll do next in your career?
That's a question that many people are asking me right now, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure. The thing I know is that I would like to do a master's, but I don't yet know in what area. For sure something biology oriented, but not necessarily neuroscience, because after 3 years of studying a neuroscience degree, you already have quite a lot of theoretical knowledge. So I'm like deciding between biotechnology and biophysics and some drug development courses. So it's a huge decision to make, but I know that after, for example, my Erasmus experience, I would like to go somewhere again. So I will study in Poland, but like for a whole year of my master's, because master's in Poland is 2 years. I would like to go somewhere to explore. Yeah?
Are work experiences important for applications?
In the UK, yes. So when you write your personal statement, you know, I didn't go to uni in the UK, but I did submit my application, got some decently good offers at the time. So yeah, I think that helped me a lot. Not only because you can just fill the space with what you did there, but you actually prove that you have enough interest to devote some of your time towards learning more about the subject. And the second thing is that you know how people in that sort of career function, what is their day-to-day life. And I feel like the universities might perceive you as a person who is more ready to start this degree and know what it comes with if you have done work experience. But I don't think it's necessary, apart from the case of medicine, I